Shay, we're back on the rankings train here. Do you have, and I put in our rundown, a gripe, but I don't know if that's the right word I was looking for. But do you see anyone that jumps out at you right away in terms of an LSU target, a Louisiana kid, an LSU commit that maybe should be higher, should be lower even, if you want to go there? What's kind of your feel on some of the rankings? And I know we preface all this with saying we still have senior seasons, all-star games to go through. It's a lot more time left.
I'll give a couple. We talked about Joel Rogers already. Just a guy who plays quarterback, plays safety, does a bit of everything, and is kind of right inside that top 200 right now. I could see him, and I think we said he was the number 16 safety on 3. I could see him climbing into the top 10 or 12 safeties and maybe higher. I don't know, but I could see that being a range he gets into, which would make him, as you noted earlier, a top 150 prospect probably. Trades Green, their tight end, is already a top 150 prospect. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up a top 100 guy. If I'm looking around, I feel like I'm sticking to just Louisiana because I'm kind of so firm on that usually. But out-of-state commitments, you've got Andre Evans. He's a top 100 guy already. You've got Ethan Callaway. He's a top 100 guy already on 3. So I just look at what you can do kind of shuffling around in Louisiana. And I've said it before. I'm on the Juwan Johnson train right now. I know he's a 4-star, but I think he could be a top 300 guy, someone who could move up in the cornerback rankings. I think he's right outside the top 30 right now. I know he doesn't play corner. He plays quarterback, but we've seen him in camps enough and in 7-on-7 settings. He's a really, really good football player. So I'm betting on him. I think he could end up being a top 300 guy.
Yeah, there's a difference of like kind of where I maybe have a different opinion on a kid than some of the ranking staff or whatnot. And one of them that jumps out at me is Kalaj Cobbins at Destrehan. And he's committed to LSU. He's wreaked havoc the last 2 years there at a high level, just overall in terms of competition too. But his frame's kind of limited. I mean, he's 6'2.5". He's 212 pounds. He doesn't have plus length. He doesn't have incredible speed to play linebacker especially. But he's just one of those high motor kids that always finds a way. And LSU wants to use him as Harold Perkins. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be Harold Perkins. That's a generational athlete I think LSU has running around doing what he's done. But I just feel like, and maybe it'll happen after his senior year, but maybe just to move up into a 4-star range, even high on 300, or maybe just a non-on 300. Because the hard thing is when it comes down to the NFL draft, do we see them taking somebody like that who has plus length in, let's even say, the top like 6 rounds? It's just kind of a tough evaluation. He's a heck of a high school football player and could have a good career at LSU, but it's a really hard one that I'm struggling with.
Yeah, and the rankings obviously do project a lot towards the NFL and how you ultimately finish out your collegiate career, just because that's one way we've had Charles Power on before to talk about this, but that's the easiest way for them to quantify their recruiting rankings being right, is match it to where these guys are, projecting them 3 to 4 years down the line. With Cobbins, for me, it's kind of simple. Destrehan's one of the best programs in the state. Destrehan plays at a high level. Destrehan won a state title, and he was the best player on the team, arguably at least. That's good enough for me. If LSU and Bama and a number of other teams saw it and offered him, that's good enough for me there as well. So I do like Cobbins a good bit. I don't know if he's a day one guy, obviously, but someone that you can bring in the program. He develops, and then he finds a spot to which kind of really allows him to flourish. I'll also say, Billy, that I have heard now, gosh, probably 2 or 3. I'm assuming every school's doing this, though. But their linebackers or their coaches on defense are pitching to linebackers, we're going to use you in a Harold Perkins role. It's almost like that's the new pitch to a linebacker, no matter which school you're at, is, hey, you see how LSU uses Harold Perkins? That's what we want you for. It's tough to then realize that Perkins has generational, once-in-a-decade type linebacker athleticism and instincts. You also need those to be Harold Perkins.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit, but I mean, that's how Harold Perkins got on the field. I mean, he was that good of an athlete that they just said, okay, fine, just go get after the quarterback, and we'll figure out the rest of it as we go. And so I'm a Kalaj Cobbins fan. I'm also interested to see if Devon Keys can move up a little bit when it comes to a guy who is out of state, maybe that can move up. I saw him working out alongside Damone Clark. Actually, last week I went out to their workout up here in Dallas. And look, I mean, Devon Keys, he's about 6 foot, little over 6 foot, about 205 pounds or so, maybe a little heavier than that. Damone Clark, measuring in around 6'3", 230 when he got out of LSU. He's somebody that lives in the weight room. He comes from a top program in Aledo. I think he has plus length compared to, obviously his body and height and things like that, which is good. He's tested fairly well. I want to see a little bit more quickness out of him as a senior in terms of what I would be looking for if I was on the rankings team. But you're looking at a guy who plays both ways too. I think in terms of maybe him earning his 4th star, that's a guy potentially to circle. I know Matt House and the Tigers are high on him. And he's one of those kids that just kind of is built a little differently as far as a mindset goes. He's always working. He's a power lifter too, ran track, and kind of did it all this summer. So he would be one of my out-of-state picks as far as the commits go that could move up too.
I'll give a non-commit, but someone that LSU fans hope does commit. I think Caden Durham could be one that when it's all settled, like right now, I think everybody just thinks of Caden Durham as one of the elite running backs in the country. Well, his actual ranking is just outside the top 100 and number 10 running back in the country. If he goes out and puts that speed on display that he did in Texas track all offseason on a Duncanville team that may not lose a game, is going to be playing a lot of high-profile games, is going to be playing well into December or whenever the playoffs are in wrap up in the state of Texas, that you could look at it when it's all said and done, and he could be the number 5 running back in the country. I don't know the lay of the land with all 10 running backs, but that combination of size, speed, production, if he does that again for what could be the best, if not one of the best high school teams in the country, I'd have to think he's a top 100 prospect at the least, if not moving up more into the running back rankings higher than 10.
Yeah, Caden Durham sits there at 10 for On3. You look at that group, there's some quality running backs and also some in Texas. Caden Durham is very, very good. He sits as the number 2 running back in Texas behind, or number 3 running back in Texas right now behind Taylor Tatum and Kedron Young, who's committed to Notre Dame. I feel like Caden is, he's kind of like Clyde in a sense. Just in terms of that, first of all, compact build. I don't know what he runs in terms of the shuttle. I know Clyde was like right around a 4 flat, or maybe even a little lower. Was he like 3.9 or something like that? But Clyde was like a sick tester. I think he was like 34-inch vert or something too as a senior and a high 4.4. But I think Caden kind of is that similar type of prospect athletically, at least, and that's good enough for me too. I think in 2024, it's a smart move to go, Caden Durham or bust. He's that good. He was very, very productive for Duncanville. I'll go one more here, and then we'll let everybody go. But I think Kai Bates, and another one that LSU fans hope they get. I love Kai Bates. I think he's got a chance to be a really steady multi-year starter at the Power 5 level. We have him now. We're actually the second lowest on him, right? ESPN has him a little lower. But I just love his size. I don't know his length, which is something that maybe the rankings team is looking at as well. But when you look at 6'2", I think he carries 180 really well. I saw him at Under Armour Orlando, and I thought he was like 205. So however he's carrying it, it looks pretty good. And you've seen his offer list and schools after him explode. So I really like Kai Bates. I think he could be a top 100 type prospect when it's all said and done.
This is setting up for a lot of guys who LSU are going to finish with are the highest ranked guys that are going to end up in the class, which makes it entertaining. It's going to be a fun 5 months till signing day.
Yep. I will say this, out of the last few years, I think when we entered the fall last year, for example, what was it? Pimpton we were watching, maybe not yet. I think he got offered in October or late September. Desmond Ricks, Javian Toviano.
Yeah. And then during the season, they offered and flipped Braithwaite and Dylan Carpenter.
Yep. And then DJ Chester jumped on board. I think this is, but like, I think this is much more intriguing this year in terms of how LSU could finish. They're also kind of hanging around with some high-end prospects. Colin Simmons, too. I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting, which is really what recruiting is overall.
5 months till signing day. A lot of action to go.